Erev Tov Rabotai, we are continuing with our Mishna Yomi, Masechet Bava Kamma. We are up to Per Gimel Mishnah Hey. Today's Mishnayot should be Le'ilu Nishmat, Neria ben Svetlana Aranbayev, Eliyahu ben Burchai Israelov, Chana bat Miriam, Sason ben Ryan, Yoshua ben Shifra, Menuchatam began Eden, Amen, and Avdi ben Chaim lechaim v'derefuah shelema, Daniel Shalom ben Rosa, betoch Shar Chulei Israel. The Mishnah discusses various cases that involve two people walking in a public area, one carrying a beam and the other carrying a jug. In each case, the two items crash into each other, with the result that the beam breaks the jug. Zeh ba bechavito, if one person was coming from one direction with the jug, v'zeh ba bekorato, and another person was coming toward him from the opposite direction with the beam, and the items collide. Nishbera chadosh shel zeh bekorato shel zeh, and this one's jug was broken by that one's beam. Patur, the owner of the beam is not obligated to pay for the jug. Shel hazeh reshut la'alech v'lazeh reshut la'alech, because they both have permission to walk in the public domain, meaning, since the owner of the beam was using the public domain in the usual way, he is not liable. The two people were walking toward each other when the damage occurred, therefore it was the force of both that made the jug break. Since the owner of the beam did not provide the entire force that broke the jug, he does not have to pay for it. However, he is exempt only if he was using the public place in the usual way. If instead of walking he was running, which is not usual behavior, he is liable. And the next Mishnah will add that if both are running, the damager is exempt then too, because both are equally to blame. Another case, Haya Baal Korah Rishon, if the owner of the beam was walking in front, Ubal Chavit Acharon, and the owner of the jug was walking behind him at a faster pace, Nishbera Chavit Bakorah, and as a result the jug was broken by the beam, Patur Baal Korah, the owner of the beam is not obligated to pay for the jug because the owner of the jug caused the accident. When two people are walking one behind the other, it is always the responsibility of the person in the back to maintain a safe distance between them. In this case, therefore, where the owner of the jug was walking behind the owner of the beam, it was his fault that the two items collided and his jug broke. Vim amad Baal Korah, but if the owner of the beam stopped in order to rest for a while, which is unexpected in a place where people are walking, and the jug crashed into the beam and broke, chayav, the owner of the beam is obligated to pay because he caused the accident by doing something unexpected. This law applies only where the owner of the beam stopped in order to rest, but if he stopped for just a moment in order to shift the weight of his burden, he is not liable because this is normal behavior even in a public area, and the jug owner should have expected it. However, if he called out to the owner of the jug, stop, Patur is exempt from payment because the owner of the jug was warned and could have avoided the collision. The Mishnah discusses the opposite of the previous situation. Haya Baal Chavit Rishon, if the owner of the jug was walking in front, Ubal Korah Acharon, and the owner of the beam was walking behind him at a faster pace, Nishbera Chavit Bakorah, and the jug was broken by the beam, Chayav, the owner of the beam is obligated to pay because the accident was his fault. In this case, where the owner of the beam was in back, he was responsible for the collision. But if the owner of the jug stopped in order to rest for a while and the beam crashed into the jug, Patur, the owner of the beam is exempt from payment because it was the owner of the jug who caused the accident. However, if he called out to the owner of the beam, stop, Chayav, the owner of the beam is obligated to pay because he was warned and could have avoided the collision. The Mishnah adds another example. Similarly, these laws apply where one person comes with his lit candle, and another comes with his bundle of flax, and the candle sets the flax on fire. The Mishnah adds this example because it could have been thought that since a flame can easily set flax on fire, the owner of the candle should have taken extra care to avoid a collision, and he is therefore liable in every situation. The Mishnah teaches that this is not so. Rather, the owner of the candle has the same laws as the owner of the beam in the previous cases. And that is then of Mishnah Hey. Mishnah Vav discusses two more cases of collisions in a public area. Shnaim shayu malchin bershut harabim, if two people were moving in a public area, echad ratz v'echad malech, and it was Erev Shabbat or Erev Yom Tov, when it is permitted to run in a public domain in order to prepare for Shabbat or Yom Tov. Now, Erev Shabbat in this context refers to the period immediately before Shabbat, when people are in a rush to prepare for Shabbat, as the Aruch HaShulchan writes in Choshen Mishpat, chapter 378, Halakha 18, and one was running and one was walking. Or if it was a regular day and both of them were running, ve'eziku zeh et zeh, and they accidentally collided and injured one another. Each injury was caused by the forces of both the damager and the victim. For example, they were running toward each other when they collided. Shneim Pitulin, both of them are exempt from payment because they are equally responsible. In the first case, the person running was allowed to do so, and in the second case, both were running. Therefore, neither one was more responsible for the damage than the other. However, if one person was running and the other was walking, and it was not Erev Shabbat or Erev Yom Tov, and the runner injured the walker, the runner would have to pay damages. Since people do not usually run in a public area on an ordinary day, the runner was acting in an unexpected way, which makes him liable, as the Gemara says on page 32a in Masechet Bava Kamma. This is so even in our Mishnah's case, where the injury was caused by the force of the victim as well. And that is on the Botai of today's Mishna Yomi. Baruch Adonai Leolam. Amen v'amen.